Okay, so I've just read through David Cameron's speech on the big society about what it is and how we create it. And my first reaction is, well, this has already existed for many, many, many years on a smaller scale than he envisages. So it's quite interesting how a conservative has taken this quite liberal approach. And I'm just going to go through a few points. So this is what the Prime Minister said. You can call it liberalism. You can call it empowerment. You can call it freedom. You can call it responsibility. I call it the big society. The big society is about a huge cultural change. So what does this actually mean? If you think about it, there's already hundreds of thousands of voluntary groups operating in the country and people just helping themselves. You've got projects that help local people, local communities, causes. So that there's already a lot of this going on. So you've got a lot of people working together to get things done. But then again, we have hundreds of thousands of people who do just rely on state handouts and are constantly pestering their MPs and asking Parliament what they should do and how they should live their lives. So we do have this contrast, and I agree that there needs to be a cultural change, as David Cameron said. But can the big society actually work in practice? British people are renowned for being quite selfish, keep themselves to themselves, and not really wanting to help other people. So, how can we go about this society change? I've already made a blog on volunteering if you want to check that one out. But the big society, surely it's more than just volunteering. If it's just the government encouraging people to volunteer, then why don't they call it the big volunteer or something instead of the big society? I've got another quote of what the Prime Minister said. He goes, "It's about people setting up great new schools, businesses helping people getting trained for work, charities working to rehabilitate offenders." But to me, this just sounds like a blatant cover-up for all of the public services that we've got at the moment that are being cut by the budget cuts, and he's just wanting an army of volunteers to come in to do this. But for the voluntary sector to carry on, it still needs money. It still needs a budget, and it does need some government support. Now, the Prime Minister's talked about the Big Society Bank, which has been built up from the funds of, pardon me, dormant bank accounts, which is a great idea because that money is not being used. And they've also very generously donated £200 million of government money into the Big Society Bank, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's really generous considering the billions that have been cut. But I don't think the Prime Minister quite realises that thousands of charities are having to shut their doors because they just can't afford to stay open. This money needs to go into them now to keep them open for this big society revolution, as he calls it. Now, so it needs to be done now, because as soon as those charities have shut their doors, it's going to take a lot more than an army of volunteers and a little bit of money to set them up again, because the people who run the charities are going to have lost complete faith in the system, and it just needs resolving now. An aspect of the big society that I do like is more devolved powers to the people. Is it Philip Redmond? No, Prime Minister again. He said the way that we run at the moment, so with power in London and Westminster, it being handed down. He said the way that the system works at the moment has turned lively communities into dull, soulless clones of each other. And I completely agree to that. So you've got all these identical towns in the way they're being run, and yeah, this is something that could be addressed under the big society. But Phil Redmond, you know that. Did you write Hollyoaks? Hang on, I'm just going to check that. Yes, it is the same Philip Redmond, so I think the Prime Minister's brought him in to be cool, because he what did he do? Hollyoaks, Brookside, Grange Hill, cool kid. And he says he wants to take power down to a nano level. So what does that mean? Does that mean local towns? So, as in, I'm from Wales, so what? A village of 2,000 people getting actual devolved powers? I think that's a bit extreme. At the moment, we've got a lot of devolution going on, from power from Westminster to Scottish Parliament, Welsh Assembly, the Parliament in Ireland. So yeah, it's working, and with the elections coming up, I'm sure more power will get devolved. But to a nano level, I think that's a bit extreme. If each community is different, it's going to generate a lot more paperwork because it's not going to be standardized practice, and it's going to take quite a while to set up. And I don't know. It's good for the people. It is empowering, I suppose. But then again, is that giving people too much power? So the Prime Minister has set up 4 pilot big society communities, but it suffered a massive blow this month. Last month in February, when Liverpool, which was it the first big society community, it's withdrawn from the scheme because of the government cuts. It means that £100 million of grants that used to go to charities can no longer be done. So the government are giving with the one hand and taking from the other. So you just wonder, does the big society work in practice? So yeah, this has been an odd, incoherent discussion of the big society, I suppose. If you've got any feedback, and the colour of my screen has changed again, I'm very sorry. Got any comments? Yeah, put them below. Cheers, bye.